All right, so 46. All right, so here we go. Don't forget, I always try to stop. Somebody start waving your hands like at 40, 45, 46 minutes after, and I'll give y'all time to go fill these out, right? So y'all do need to be sure to mark these up, but then if you have somehow email me and I can change each one of the other days, okay? But look, I'm ready to do Friday. So taking that thing on Thursday night, so we're pushing it, right? Because I'm not going to be giving that thing, you know, Friday. I mean, I've got to turn grades out, I believe, Friday. So please be on your game here on that. Okay, so this one, we're going to look at some climate and biosphere. Another good major, some of y'all might be interested in. Really good idea, but how many of y'all thought about meteorology or anything like that? Mississippi State has one of the, and I'm not this person, but Mississippi State has a top 5 meteorology program in the United States. And I'm not saying you got to be a weather person, but you can, but the Navy and the Army and the airports and all that, weather's a big deal, right? And so you can go down there and get a degree in meteorology, and you can be a weather person up front, or you can be the person in the back predicting the storms with others. Sometimes some of those people, most of those are meteorologists, some of them now are just actors almost now, right? They may not know the science behind it all. That's a cool concept, and we're going to talk a little bit about that this morning. And then we'll talk about the different terrestrial ecosystems. I really like this chapter, and then come back to some of my early research in aquatic ecosystems, right? I told you I worked for a couple of years on a PhD in aquatic toxicology, so we can go back to the lake and look at that. So this is a fun chapter. Okay, so climate. Okay, what is climate? Kind of a cool term here. The prevailing weather conditions in a region, okay? And the two main things that determines what type of ecosystem you have, or what type of biome. We're going to see these biomes today. Y'all know the biomes like deserts and stuff like that, right? All that. The main two things that determine that, question number 3, I think I'm answering, the main 2 factors that determine what biome will be found in a particular area is average temperature and average rainfall. Okay? So you take an area like the grasslands of north of the short grass prairies of Kansas and our Midwestern United States where we grow a lot of bread. We're just a couple of inches of rainfall away from turning that into a semi-desert, into a desert, okay? And we know that the Sahara Desert of Africa, the largest desert on earth, was once a grassland. We can tell fossil records of that. So things can change, and we're very concerned about global warming affecting our biomes, right? I mean, we may have to just annex Canada. I don't even think it'd be a battle, right? We just annex Canada because the breadbasket could move up to Ontario, right? If we keep seeing global warming, right? And then we would be like in the desert. It would be like Central America here in Mississippi, right? You get real hot and real rainy. So we are very concerned about that. Okay, but so climate is influenced by a multitude of factors, including how far you are away from the equator and the tilt of the Earth's axis. Topography is referring to elevation. Like you can have a desert, but once you have a mountain range, it can get cold as you go up, right? So how high you above sea level is a big deal, and whether a body of water is nearby. Okay, and I thought this first little part here is solar radiation directly at the equator, and the tilt of the Earth causes one pole or the other to be angled toward the sun, and that determines our seasons. Okay, look at this. It's kind of a cool picture. Let me get this picture. So they actually, a couple of years ago, somebody like ACT or MCAT guys, the ones that make professional like the ACT and SATs, they give every senior in Harvard and like maybe 20 colleges a 50-question like ACT test on general knowledge, and they all failed it. So we've been complete failures in college and teaching y'all basic stuff, especially the basic science. And one of the questions was, what determines the seasons? And the question is the Earth closer to the sun during the summer and far away in the winter? And that was like 85% of people thought that, and that's not what determines our seasons. It's our tilting more toward the sun. So in the springtime, look, you would get more direct sunlight in summer, right? So that's summertime for North and South America. And then in the winter, we're tilted away and we get less direct sunlight. And the equator gets more direct sunlight all the time. So that's why it's very hot. If y'all, anybody, I have not been down, I'm on a cruise. I haven't been all the way to the equator yet. I haven't been to South America. I've been down in the Caribbean, but it gets kind of, Central America stays warm year round, right? So I have like some friends of mine that want to buy land down there, maybe in around the equator. And my wife has been to Panama, the country, like 15, 20 times on a church trip. I just never get home with them. I teach in summer, pay for the bills. But it's very beautiful down there, and it's warm year round, right? Their winter and spring is nothing like ours. They don't almost have any seasons, right? It's almost continuously summer. Okay. But anyway, pretty interesting. However, now the moon does get close. Anybody see what Sunday was? There's 2 times this year the moon is going to get very close to Earth. And so it was at its closest point on Sunday to Earth. And that's why you had the big moon in the sky and the blood moon. You know, I mean, it really it's bigger, like several times bigger than it actually normally appears. Okay, pretty cool. That was Sunday. So we have another thing going with that. So that's pretty cool. That kind of answers that first question, right? Okay, so it's about the tilt. And if you're at the equator, the sun is always directly hitting you, right? That's pretty cool. Okay, now here's another phenomenon. And another thing is the current flows with the Earth spinning. We get certain water movements that determine a lot to do with certain airflow and ocean currents. So here are most of the airflow currents, and y'all know, y'all watch the news probably of the weather. We don't ever get a storm from the east. So all of our storms come in from the west, right? So the natural current of airflow on Earth is for things to come across this way, right? Due to this movement of the circulation of the Earth. And so what happens in Dallas probably will happen here in the next day or two, right? You can that's how they kind of predict the weather, right? And then when we get a cold front, sometimes it blows in from above and it can dip down and we get some really cold air that we've had here recently. Last couple of weeks, probably, I saw the record low in Memphis was set like last Tuesday, right? Like 32 degrees. It was like a 80-year record. Okay, coldest morning on record. Well, ever on record was last week, one of the mornings last week. So the different hemispheres, that's kind of cool. And you get the different air currents, trade winds, different from the North and South Pole. Pretty cool. Because of the spin of the Earth, above the equator of the Earth, when you flush the toilet, you get a tornado that is clockwise, right? In South America, it does opposite that, and if the equator just goes straight through, it doesn't do that one thing. That was a good story, though. If the equator doesn't spin, it just goes straight down. I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe not. But that's got to do with the gravity to spin the Earth. Did you notice that? Yeah. When you get down below the equator down South America, it's supposed to go the other way. What I've been told, and been there. But when you flush, you know how water drains, you get a little tornado, the vortex. Trivia, y'all are no fun today. All right. Topography can have a huge effect. Take a look at this. This is one of my favorite concepts here. Rain shadow. Okay. Now, has anybody been to Death Valley in California, in Nevada? Okay, and that's cool. Okay, it really is cool. I've gone several times from Vegas across, but one time, and I wish this had been, I think it'd be kind of cool. But if you come from California side, you actually see that you experience this rain shadow. Okay, you get to see what's going on here. So basically, you come in you cross the Sierra Nevada, whatever, come up, there's a highway runs along the east side of the mountain range. And there's a service station there, and it says last gas station for the next 80 miles. Okay, and you better fuel up because you got to get in. There's a gas station, 2 or 3 gas stations in that valley. Well, when we were coming, I'd been several times from Vegas, but we're coming across here. I'm going along, and I see a big mountain range, and I'm like, okay, we're going to come over this hill. It's going to be Death Valley. So we go up this mountain range, go to the top, and look down, and I thought it was Death Valley. We kept driving, and drove right through it, and started going up the other side. So it wasn't Death Valley. And you go through, if you count the Sierra Nevadas, there's 3 mountain ranges to do this. And this is why we have a desert on the far side of a mountain range. Okay, in other words, look, Pacific Ocean, water comes in, beautiful Southern California, the Sierra Nevadas comes up, force it up, and it rains, and that's where we grow all of our vegetables in the United States in that whole middle of California, okay? Because it's always nice and rains there every day, okay, a lot. Okay, when that warm water goes up here, it causes it to rain down, and when it comes over, you get a rain shadow effect where it's dry on the other side of the mountain range. Of course, the wind always blows from the west to east here. So there's 2 more mountain ranges before you get, not as high as that, but there's 2 more mountain ranges that creates a triple rain shadow, in my opinion, in the Death Valley. And if you go to Death Valley, go in there and go walk out at the bitter water or whatever it's called, and that is the lowest temperature, the highest temperature ever recorded on Earth is down there. I was out there. I've gone several times in spring break, and we would go in there. I've actually been in the Sliding Rocks, which is really cool. It's about 50, 60 miles down the dirt roads where these rocks have fallen off the mountain and they move at night. And how do you know they move? Because they left a scar in the mud. And nobody knew until about 5 years ago how they moved. And what happens is it has to rain and you get about 15, 20 mile an hour wind and it slides them across the mud. Just once or twice a year it does that. But we were in there and I'm just gonna be honest with you, I'm from Mississippi, and I just thought the people out there didn't understand heat. The Mississippi Delta was bad in August, right? And it was hot, but it wasn't no hotter than I've been in Mississippi in the cornfield in April, May. I mean, in June, July, August. So I just kind of thought it was like, okay, it's just a dry heat versus wet heat here. And I just really thought they were kind of, I mean, it's 100 degrees, but I mean, this just seems like they were over just a little bit wimps. So I took my mom and dad out there a couple years ago in July, like 20th, something like that, late July. We pulled in Death Valley, and my little temperature on the car said 130. When I got out of the car, I felt like opening the oven. When you open the oven, it's 4 seconds solid, and heat comes out, except it didn't stop. And so I immediately took my list of what we're going to do that day, and I had about to go slide rocks, go down the middle. I mean, like 60 miles in the desert. If you have car trouble, they'll just find you dead there, And I really checked in the hotel at 2 o'clock, and we got to bed, turned air conditioner on, got in bed. It was that bad. So it really is. If you go to Death Valley, go during the winter or go in spring break, but do not go in July. You cannot even enjoy. I mean, what time of year was you out there? Pretty bad, wasn't it? Yeah, June is bad too. June is bad. It's beautiful scenic, and it's not as much. There's only part of it is the sand dunes, right? We think about deserts, but a lot of the deserts very much alike. But anyway, but rain shadow is a cool effect. There's also an island in Hawaii that does this, and they have built. You're gonna love this. They built golf courses on this side, and they put a pipe through it to water them. So they water them. They basically, you got 365 days of golf. Never rains, but they bring the water through from the other ocean side of that. Makes for some pretty cool stuff. Nothing like rain to mess up your golf around, right? Okay, and that brings us to our different biomes, right? And we talked about this, love this picture. Here is a graph showing the 8 or 10 different biomes that we have. And notice that what determines what biome it is? Average temperature, average rainfall. So on the left, you got deserts when it's hot. Then it goes to semi-desert all the way to tundra, which is up in the tundra is where you have ice. You have the ice parts of North and South Pole. Tundra is like northern Canada and parts of Antarctica where you have trees and stuff and shrubs, but there is a permafrost that prevents big trees from growing there. All the way out to tropical rainforest where you have temperature and lots of water. But you can see how it would be not much trouble to go from a temperate deciduous forest to a woodland to a shrubland to a desert, right? Semi-desert very quickly there with that. And savannas, this is the savannas of Africa, the elephants and giraffes, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so what we're going to do next is kind of run through these and look at some of these biomes. And I've got a couple of questions there about that one. I just answered there question 3. I actually answered question 4 then. Okay, and then we'll come back to 5 and I'll answer that one again as we go through them. Okay, here's a map showing them. And notice that at the equator, we see some deserts, right? And grasslands, right? And actually, we see a little bit more desert about 30 degrees north and south of the equator. And this is because we get an upwelling of those air currents and they blow down there and create hot air coming down, makes 2 very dry areas at 30 degrees north and south latitude, longitudinal 30 degrees up or down there. And so notice, look, deserts in Australia, Africa, South America, and in 30 degrees north, Mexico, and then you got part of of Africa where we see the Sahara Desert, and then come across into the Middle East and parts of China and Indonesia. Okay, pretty cool. At the equator, we see some of the rainforest, right, which is pretty cool group. Okay, we'll look at some of these here. So I think we're going to run through each of those kind of quickly here. Here's another graph showing how altitude can change things very quickly, right? So at sea level, it might be ice or tundra here, but as we go up, we get coniferous forest, deciduous forest, tropical forest, more rainfall over here, deciduous forest, leading to ice and alpine on the other end. So, right, where you're at according to longitude can have a big effect on it too, but mainly but that's going to determine average sunlight and rainfall. Okay, the first one over here, the Arctic tundra, circles the Earth just south of the ice-covered polar seas in the northern hemisphere. Covers 20% of the Earth's land surface, and we do know this is melting. Now, we cannot deny that this is melting, and as it melts, it is going to cause the oceans to rise a little bit. I don't think we can pretty much defend those ice caps melting. But this permafrost is a cool thing. This is a layer of ice under the ground in the tundra that never thaws, and this is why you don't see big trees there. There's plenty of water, but the roots can't go down through this permafrost. Now, here's the problem. Imagine that. Has anybody, I've been up there bear hunting, and I haven't been up in the high tundra, way up there, but I've been up enough of it to where there's a problem here too. When that ice melts and it rains, there's nowhere for the water to seep down. So it makes for a real bad muddy mess, right? So you always got that layer of ice so you can't seep down in the soil. My dad and them went up into Ontario. I've been up in there bear hunting, but we probably didn't get much to the tundra. But they actually got up there and went as far as the roads go and the railroad goes. And then they got to this airport and a guy loaded them up on a plane that landed on water, and they went caribou hunting up in the tundra. So they got up on planes and went completely for another like 4 hours in the middle of it. They saw no civilization, and they had this camp that they built out there from the public land. Where they land on the river, and they would let 8 of them get off and bring all their hunting gear, and then 8 more for 100 weeks. They just come get you every week. They had a radio, they called for help, something happened. And the guys that got on the plane, when they got off, they killed like 1 caribou. And my dad, as a matter of fact, I can tell this, I think the statute limitations have gone off. I have an uncle that's complete idiot redneck, and he doesn't abide by any laws, hardly at all, But anyway, my dad said never carried up there. But anyway, they're up there caribou hunting like day 2, and they hear like a stampede coming. They're actually in a boat going down the river, and they get caught in a caribou migration. So they just like hundreds of caribou start running through the river and stuff. And so my uncle shoots one, and they had license to shoot 2 of them. I think my dad might took the gun from him after he shot 5. Okay. Because he saw a bigger one come out with a bigger horn, he kept shooting. My dad and they got to fight over that. But anyway, they all limited out. And they brought all that back. And so I went here, I suspect a caribou head someday. It's in my own home in Lee County. That literally we kept it low. I mean, the bottom of the mountain is like a foot off the ground because the horns touching the like 12-foot roof. I mean, huge beast, beautiful horns. And my dad's still mad at my uncle about that. But anyway, but very beautiful area. I still have a picture of it there. Here we go. Speaking of caribou. Okay. But anyway, so he's got one. I got one about like that in the day. I got 2 of those. My dad got 2 of them there. And you can see what they are in the little green area. So they actually, we drove up to here and then rode a plane up into that tundra area. But notice there are no trees because that's permafrost. Pretty cool stuff. Malls, a lot of stuff like that. And you have to really, and you can see these guys. I mean, really, they got lucky. They got lucky. But beautiful animals. Okay, and then we have the coniferous evergreen forest, right? Exemplified here by the moose, and we can see how that is. That's pretty much Canada and parts of northern China, parts of Australia. I haven't been to Australia, but I'd love to go down there because you can almost hit all the biomes in that one continent. Very unusual place. I am obsessed with moose. I do like moose. I've been up there. I haven't been moose hunting, but I've been moose hunting with a camera. Okay, and we were up in the this area of Canada that's right in here. We were up on a trip right above Glacier National Park. So it's called the Glacier Highway. And we got up there and I wanted to see a glacier before they all melted, because literally Glacier National Park is not going to have a glacier in another 30 years. So they have to rename it, formerly Glacier National Park, whatever, because they're melting. And so you got up there, and and I'm not a big, global eco warrior or anything like that, but I do think when you look at this, because the road called Glacier Highway had glacier on it when they built this road like 100 years ago. Okay. And so they have a big old visitor center. We got out, we paid these guys like $40. They had those big ice, like a bus on tracks, that can go out through the ice and can probably carry 20 people. And so we crossed the road, and right in the parking lot, they had the glacier was here in 1952. Then we drove like another quarter mile, the sign glacier here, 72. Okay, and then in other words, the glacier is melting, so we had to go about 5 miles to get to the glacier. And so it is definitely retracting. And we got out and we drunk some of the water melting off. And one of my guys literally fell into the water. He was walking on it and he fell through the ice. And the guys doing our little cures, and I've never had that out before. I think they're always careful when they put us out. But we reached down and drunk this pure water that's probably froze hundreds of millions of years ago, probably, right? So anyway, pretty cool stuff. And so then I got a map out and looked for a lake up in there somewhere close. And I found a lake in a national park. And so we went out to it. That is a pretty good sized lake. They have it. People look like this 4 or 5 cars parked there. It's probably about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And so we get to the lake, and it had a trail around the lake. And I went right, and the other guys went left. And I walked down, and I'll get down to where it looks like it's going to go in the lake, because the water's up high. And this dude, about bigger than this guy, walks right out the trail and I might meet to the window, and I got my camera here, and he just snorts, like, get out of my area. And they will chase you during rut when they're breeding. Another friend of mine ran up in the woods, and the only reason he got away was he ran through a bush that the bear the caribou's horn got hung in a tree in the bush. He got away. But anyway, so I just start taking pictures and start backing up. And finally, when I get my nerve up, I pull my camera up and get some really great pictures of him. I was processing the pictures before I saw the sign beside it said, like, don't feed the caribou or something. You know, I didn't even see the sign on the road. Freaked me out. But anyway, he went out and fed, and they eat aquatic plants in the lake. And I watched him for about an hour, and then I ran out of memory sticks and ran back to the car and got more memory sticks from my camera. And they had to drag me off that lake about 7 o'clock because I just couldn't leave. I sit there and watch him play forever. Very beautiful animals. You can also see them in outside, Bozeman up in there, not Bozeman, but out in Colorado. That's pretty good stuff out there around Bozeman up there. I've seen them out there too. But anyway, beautiful animals. Strongly encourage you to see one of these huge beasts, man. Big things. Gorgeous. And this is where we live in this temperate deciduous forest area. And you can see that the Eastern United States should be forest, but we cut a lot of that down. We have these beautiful oak trees, as you can see, and we coast Europe and parts of China up there. Anybody see a bobcat? Anybody deer hunter? Anybody deer hunt stuff? Okay, anybody see a bobcat in the woods? Yeah, I did too, man. I killed him, man. That was in my kill things in my life.
Have you seen a video on the internet of the guy like throwing the bobcat?
I saw that on NBC. Yeah, y'all see that? Anybody? It's pretty cool, but they didn't let you hear the whole story about that. So basically, this is the husband and wife getting out of the car like last week, and the wife gets out of the SUV. He gets out of the SUV, and they're right from the house. So they have a camera. Like a lot of people have cameras now, security cameras. So this is how it's taped. Bobcat just attacks the wife. I mean, so she comes out of the back of the car screaming, hollering, and the husband's like, "What's going on?" And it's trying to bite her in the neck. It knows that where to attack. And so he just grabs the darn thing by the throat and chokes it and throws it down. And then all these other neighbors start coming up, and that's where they stopped the video because they didn't want to show you what happened. And he pulled his gun out of his car. He had a carry permit and killed the freaking thing. So, okay. I was deer hunting one time, and he came through the woods and shot it. And then I went and looked and saw it was bobcat season too, so I did shoot it during the season. Only after I shot it. Okay, I felt bad about that. And I was going to get it mounted. It's beautiful. I went down and shot it now because they look just like a cat walk through the woods. You ever seen one today? Because they're gorgeous. Okay, big, like a super cat. Okay, but that's one of our predators in our area here that we have that's native here. Okay, and of course we have the seasons here in the beautiful forest. Okay, now this, go ahead and throw this out. The tropical rainforest is the highest, what we call primary productivity of any ecosystem. So there's more biomass per square inch here than anywhere else on Earth. So the big ones are the rainforest and the estuaries. Swamp. Arkansas, Louisiana, swamp and stuff. So, but the tropical rainforest is number one. They have plenty of rainfall and warm weather. They also have another weird thing with the rainforest is most of the biomass is in the trees. It's in the canopy of the trees. There's very little soil. The soil is very thin. So when they cut the rainforest and carry the lumber off and then burn the canopy, it washes away and you cannot even grow the trees back on that land again. So it's very sad. So if they clear cut a rainforest, it cannot be converted back to a rainforest unless they literally put up things to stop the water from running off, carry the nutrients off. Epiphyte is a plant that grows in another tree, or on another tree. So these hang on other trees, so they grow and grow on other trees. That's a good one there. Beautiful place here. I haven't been down into the one in Belize, but Mr. Donahue's been to Belize, and so my doctor friend's been to Belize. And down there, it's kind of eco-tourism is a big deal, right? So they'll take you down. They actually build like some of y'all done the rappel, or not the what they call it, when you just ride the top of the wire, like zip line. Thank you. Couldn't think of it. So they zip line through these rainforests. So there's actually a place that you pay 50, 60 bucks, and they'll drop you, and you slowly go through about 10 minutes through a rainforest, and you see all of this. So you see all the different plants growing inside the big trees. Very beautiful. Also pretty wild. Here's where the rainforests are on Earth. And you can see most of these are near the equator. Book even talks about Madagascar, like it's just a crazy stat now. I'm just going to try to paraphrase, but like 20% of all endangered species on Earth are in Madagascar. I mean, literally, it's right on the brink of eco disaster. Okay, over in Indonesia. So there's a panther. That's one of the big predators found there. Pretty cool. Shrublands, okay, and they also the California shrublands are called chaparral. There's Roadrunner, nothing like the cartoon, right? Okay, but also this is kind of, to me, almost kind of ridiculously funny that part of the ecosystem is a normal fire. So all these freaking rich movie stars building a freaking house and a freaking chaparral. I mean, really? Is that why my insurance is so high? I'm just saying it burns every year. So all this, like parts of Southern California, parts of Europe, it's fire part of the natural ecosystem. And of course, what do? We try to stop fires, and then we don't let those normal fires occur that kill some of that undergrowth, right? And then you get a big fire and the whole Grand Valley burns down. So y'all know California's had a lot of fires out there last couple of years because it's been kind of dry in some of this area. But maybe we shouldn't build a house next to the ocean unless we're willing to pay to rebuild it when the hurricane hits it, right? Or vice versa. Or chaparral, not really good. Of course, they have the landslides out there too, right? So a lot of times the house falls down the hill. Then we have the grasslands, and we are in part of we have the temperate grasslands here in North America and the savannas of Africa. Kind of interesting here, the tall grass prairies are out there in the, I think you go from short grass to tall grass, you go from right to left. The bison, man, great story here. I'm a big buffalo fan myself. Do y'all know who the largest owner of buffalo in the world is? Y'all might find this a little trivia than what we're going to test. Y'all probably know who this is. Ted Turner, you know who Ted Turner is? Probably don't know who it is. Okay, sorry, I'm going to date myself here. Ted Turner was one of the great businessmen of the last century. He started basically CNN, the cable news network, and he was the first cable channel. So basically, when I was y'all's age, we couldn't get, we have ESPN, and you had to watch CBS out of Atlanta. So most people around here are Braves fans, Cardinal fans. He broadcast the Braves everywhere in the world, and WWF, all the RAS and all that started with his networks, and he sold it to, he sold the whole thing to, I think it's CBS, not ABC or whatever, and then they ended up buying Netscape or something, lost a bunch of money. They ended up buying one of the web servers or whatever. But anyway, but he was a very famous guy who did a lot of this, but he was a big believer of trying to save the buffalo, and his idea to save them is he's bought up almost all, he probably owns 50% of buffalo in the world. And he has his own restaurant, so you might see him. There's one in, I don't think there's one in Memphis, it's called Turner's Steakhouse, and they sell basically filet mignon and ribeye, and the steaks are buffalo. And you get cow too, but they're specialized in buffalo. And his theory was if people eat them, people won't kill them all. And then what his goal is domesticated where we will grow them. But he also owns a lot of ranches in Utah. I mean, out west, he's bought a lot of land out there for they graze. There were just maybe a couple of thousand left in the third century. And so we killed all of them. And there's even some folks who would say in sociology or in anthropology, which is my minor, is that we did it for a reason. Because what would happen to the Indians if we killed all of them? Then their culture would end. And so there's some thought there that maybe the prevailing powers at the time wanted that to happen, right? I'm just saying that then they're gonna have to do the job somewhere else, right? Can't to kill all the buffalo, then they can't go eat them. But anyway, I'm not real big fan. I've had the steak and I've had a buffalo hamburger a couple times. But they're beautiful animals, and there were millions of them, that, literally hundreds of thousands of them grazed the whole Midwest, the United States, all the way from Kansas, all the way to Wyoming, Colorado, and stuff, right? And then there are just a few left now in Yellowstone and other places, but a lot of them are privately grown now, and he's raising them. Very beautiful animal. We actually bought one. I was raised a very bizarre childhood. My dad and them, like, they used to be, there still is, I'm sure, there's a exotic animal auction in up in Louisiana, up in Illinois, and they went up Cape Girardeau, Missouri, that's where it's at. And they went up there and came back with 3 buffalo. And then these guys, they said they wouldn't breed cows. I saw them, they did breed cows. And we had a little purple cow. But the buffalo baby animals have a purple skin. I'll never forget one time he got out because he would like to go to the other places, other people's farm. And my dad told me to get out of the truck one time and turn the buffalo in the fence, and I just laughed at him. I'm like, dude, I'm getting out of the car. You can't turn those guys. They're all like a linebacker. Look at all that meat up front. They got their head down. They can take a fence down. They can knock a ball down. They're pretty powerful animals. Well, we ended up, I think it died. My uncle mounted it, so he has it in his house. And here we got the savannas here, beautiful. I have not been on a real safari. I want to see that someday before I die. I'd like to go down there. It's on my bucket list. If I can go to Africa on a savannah, on a safari in the savannah, see all these beautiful animals and the zebras, et cetera, et cetera. Deserts, usually found at latitudes about 30 degrees in both hemispheres due to that wind, like in moisture coming down. Average rainfall less than 25 centimeters a year. Okay, and deserts don't have the least ecosystem. They come in second. Guess what has the worst primary productivity? Least amount of life is open oceans. So oceans are not very, they're pretty much not a lot going on out there, right? It's so big, right? But oceans and deserts would be your least primary productivity. And here are the deserts on Earth. Pretty cool. But I do think it's really pretty out there. Like you said, I would really, if you ever go to Vegas, it's a good day trip, an afternoon trip. You can go out there to Death Valley, see the sand dunes, but you can also take there's a beautiful view with it, that Xanadu or whatever point above it. You can drive up it. It's like two foot step out of your car, and you can look down, and 2 miles down, you can see literally a mile down to the, what is it, Sweetwater. That's it. That's the name of the hottest place on Earth. So there's an overlap because of that, is that rain shadow effect. Pretty cool place. The deserts are more alive. And then we got the aquatic ecosystems. We'll look at these real quick. Wetlands are a big deal. Wetlands, which are marsh, swamps, and bogs, they're very important to nature. We only know this maybe the last 50, 60 years. These are God's natural filters. So they actually filter toxins out of the water. And one of my buddies that was in research and rescue with me, I hadn't talked to him in years. Last time I talked to him, he was building wetlands around, he's working for a Chevron, I believe. And so they, around their oil refineries, they will build a wetland around it to run the effluent through it to catch all these bad stuff before they put it in the water. We even was putting layers, like plastic layers down, so that once the soil gets saturated with bad chemicals, they can go in there and pull the layer out, kind of like a diaper, and just throw it and go bury it in the landfill. You know what I mean? They can literally then take all that out and put it and seal it up and go bury it somewhere, kind of like nuclear waste. But God's wetlands are very important. I guess probably now for the last 30, 40 years in Florida, Disney did buy all that land before this law. I think Disney World. But anytime they drain a swamp in Florida, you must create a swamp of equal size somewhere else in the state. So, because they now realize the economic impact and value of wetlands, and that's a big deal. So they have to be very careful when they build, like when they make a new world in Disney World, they can't just go drain the swamp. Okay. Super cool, of course. Look, the estuaries are where most of our our shrimp and fish, and the fish come in and breed, and this is where they lay their eggs. So this is super important. If you ever go down fishing in Louisiana, that's where you go up in the estuaries, you go catch fish. Very, very beautiful. Lakes come in like 2 flavors. Lithotrophic is a nutrient poor, a very clear lake. Okay, and a eutrophic lake is nutrient rich. Okay, so it has lots of nutrients in it, and it's alive. You see stuff you can't see through the water. You can't see the fish in the water in a eutrophic lake. And a lithotrophic becomes eutrophic if it gets what's called eutrophication. If you have runoff in it, for example, one of the biggest runoffs is when you wash your clothes using phosphate detergent. So you're putting phosphates, which is one of the limiting, one of the 3 things in fertilizer. Remember, on the 3 numbers on fertilizer. But that's you running that right in the creek. So, just to give you a good example of this, and I really learned this the hard way. Okay, there you go. There's a lithotrophic, and here's eutrophic. So this guy that I worked for a little while, I had to take some aquatic fishing, some classes, and he got us all pumped up about we're going to go out to Lafayette County water treatment plant, and I'm going to show you how they hurt the ecosystem. Because he pumped us up, we thought we were going to see death, where all this waste coming out of the way, out of the water treatment plant's killing everything. So like here's the water treatment plant, and here's the little river, which is whatever the river is coming down there. You can actually go over it on I-55. And so there's a big bend like right here, and here's where the effluent is going in. So we're walking down here, we're sampling, and we're taking samples of water and dirt and counting critters and stuff. And I'm thinking we're gonna make this bend, and it's gonna be death and destruction, right? Because I didn't understand how this worked at the time, you know. But remember, one man's poop is another man's fertilizer. Right? We turn that corner, and it's like freaking tropical wild, like a regular tropical rainforest. Fish jumping and everything, because I mean, all that fertilizer coming through. I mean, come on, even the Indians would put a dead fish in with the corn, right? Because that dead body is nutrients, right? And so I can tell you at home, we don't do it anymore, but my dad used to, we had that dairy farm, we had a lot of poop, we had a septic tank, a lake. So we put the poop in this lake, and they made a pump to put in, and we had like we call a honey wagon, and you put it, and then go spread poop on your land, which is fertilizer. And my dad always had beautiful grass, because he'd come up there and put, though it's gonna rain that afternoon, he'd go out there and put it in our yard, and of course it rained, it would wash it all in, it's nutrients. Okay, and it's pretty good fertilizer. But this was super eutrophication. We actually saw that, and it was a eutrophic, a legotrophic here, eutrophic, once we got with all that fertilizer from the poop was going in. So it's kind of a shocker, right, that nutrient things that we put out of the house will make things grow. Matter of fact, most of y'all probably have picked blackberries. Where do you pick blackberries around your house? On a ditch behind the house, right by the septic tank line. There's a reason, because all those nutrients coming out of the food, and the blackberries are germinated, run through the gut. So you plant the seeds in your feces. Okay, so you run off and are planting seeds if you're eating blackberries. Pretty cool. Okay, lakes. Let's look at one of the pictures here. Here's a freshwater, the turnover. This is a big deal. But y'all heard about the fall and spring turnover. This is when the water gets warmer and then it mixes. And y'all all jumped in the swim pool and felt like a cold layer. Because that is the waters, the waters they stratify where the cold and warm water don't mix. But because it gets warm, the top water gets warm, it goes down, it's heavier, so you get a turnover, and you can call out Sardis or Archibald, and they'll tell you when the fall and spring turnover occurs. Or if you lived out there like I did and drove by it every day, all you had to do was roll the window. Because that water in the bottom would get very anaerobic and would be doing anaerobic respiration, making methane. So it smells like poop. And so when it turned over, you'd have a real smelly day at the lake. The spring and fall turnover, because it mixes up and down. But what we know it does, it also brings a lot of nutrients up, on both times to get that nutrient upwelling, so you have a good fish, lots of food for the fish to eat. But normally when you get those stratifications in summer, winter, you'll see that thermocline is the layer between cold and hot water. So it stratifies out in the winter and the summer, but then they mix in the fall and spring. And that's very important for a lake ecosystem to know. And then here is the drawing I want you to draw here of a freshwater ecosystem. With the limbic zone is the surface of the lake and the ocean, the deep part all the way down, this far down is photosynthesis can occur. And then the profundal is the bottom of the lake. Okay, but then this littoral zone is as far out as plants can go through. So that's where all the primary productivity is. That's where you're going to go fishing, right? Okay, and then the benthic is once again the bottom layer. Okay, the benthic is actually I said that wrong. Benthic is the soil things like clams and stuff on the bottom of the ocean. Profundal is the deep part of an open lake. This is kind of interesting. When I was at Ole Miss probably 20 years ago. This was pretty hot field, and a guy named Dr. Wetzel from Auburn is the father of freshwater ecosystems. Nobody ever even looked at him, but he started publishing papers back in the 50s and 60s. And I got a chance to meet him. I'm sure he's dead now. He's probably about 75, 80 when I met him. He came and spoke to Ole Miss. So he wrote the textbook on water ecology, like volume 1. So he's like the father of that field. Because nobody really studied freshwater ecosystems until the latter part of this last century. So it's kind of neat to hear him and his thoughts about that. My son-in-law is just getting his PhD next month in July in wildlife management, and that's what he studies. He looks at freshwater lakes and rivers, and that's his field of his PhD in wildlife management, Mississippi State, and that. He's interviewing for a job for U.S. Fisheries in Tupelo, which is a district office. But so lakes is really cool, and like I said, I've only been looking at these now for about 75 years now. Okay, estuaries, we already talked about that, and I think it's a pretty good stopping point here. I think I'm not going to get through all of it. So we'll pick up here, estuaries, mangrove, all that's pretty cool. We'll stop here. Y'all have a good day. Thanks for paying attention today. We'll stop here. We shall.